Three. And we're back. This is episode 490. 490, that's right. We're getting to the mythical 500 episodes over 10 years. This week's very special guest on the Colombia Calling podcast. Well, if you've been listening for the 10 years, you will know him because his name is Barry Max Wills. He's an author. He calls himself half Australian, half British, and half Colombian. So there you go. But most excitingly, he's on the line to us from his picturesque home in Anserma, Caldas, where he has, with his partner, a coffee farm. And even more excitingly, myself and my wife, Alba, we launched last year a boutique publishing company. And the first piece of non-fiction that we are publishing is Barry's book. So welcome on the Colombia Calling podcast.
Thank you very much, Richard.
It's a real pleasure.
Greetings from the bush.
Greetings from the bush. We can hear the lilt of your Australian accent and, of course, the terminology, the bush. Is it really the bush? How different is it to like an Australian setting? Because I think of the outback.
Well, I mean, I call it the bush because it's not a city. I only ever lived in cities until we came here. And I used to visit people in the country. And I always remember I've got friends in the Northern Tablelands in New South Wales. And Victoria came to me one day, which is my host, and she said, Bilbo, which is what they call me there. Bilbo, you're a wonderful guest. And I said, why is that, Vicky? He said, well, all these others, they want to go and round up sheep and get cattle, and they just make everything twice as bad. You just sit there and read a book until it's time for a gin and tonic. That's great. And that was my experience of the bush.
I think that's the most civilized. It sounds like the British Raj type behavior. Well, without the empire and without all of the oppression, but, just going and enjoying a gin and tonic in the midday sun.
Well, the thing, and when you say, is it like the Australian bush? No, it's a bit green. Mm-hmm. We've got a cousin who came. She's quite a well-known artist, and she loved the place, but she didn't bring any green because being Australian, she only had umber and brown and dark red and all that sort of stuff. So, and I must admit, I mean, I never get bored here, particularly when COVID was on. I mean, instead of looking out a window at an apartment, etc., we look out onto coffee trees and bamboo and ducks and things like that.
That's the best thing, isn't it? I mean, you could sit. Obviously, you have this very privileged situation of being able to sit out there and look at this amazing scenery. A lot of us sat looking into car parks for a while. But of course, I complain, but we left after 105 days. We got out of Bogota and got to Montpos, and life changed immeasurably. I mean, out there, it's pretty amazing. You write, you read. There's painting going on, as you say. You've got the countryside to stare at. The tropical birds are continually on your balconies and your window ledges. It's never a dull moment.
No, and we got a lot of our own food too, so that's quite good.
So self-sustaining out there, almost.
almost. No, I'm just truly blessed or truly privileged. But we're here doing the right thing and growing coffee for Colombia. So
I think it's kind of amazing, really, the coffee for. But of course, I would be at home anywhere that coffee is produced, so long as there is a almost never-ending supply of coffee. I only drink coffee in the morning. I don't do it after.
How do you have it?
Black.
Good. That's the way to do it.
Nothing else. I want the aroma. I want the taste. I don't need milk in it. I don't need sugar in it, because if you put sugar in it, for me, that's like a warmed up Coca-Cola or something.
Exactly. Well, I always they say sugar, and I say no, thanks, I'm sweet enough. But the other thing is, which I found coming here, because I like it black. I don't like milk in it. And of course, when they say, how would you like your coffee? And I said, just black, no milk. Oh, Americano. And I said, no, sorry, Australian, por favor.
Well, I would say, like, a Colombiano. Why not? I mean, but,
soft drink like iron brew.
Please don't. I mean, the Scots, there's a lot of great things that come from Scotland. Single malt being, of course, I would say the most important, but iron brew is not amongst them. For those of you who are not familiar with Iron Brew, it is the sweetest. I mean, it's basically Colombiana. It's basically the same. I don't know which one came first. Probably Colombiana came first than Iron Brew, but
no idea.
Scots, it's this horrible fizzy, nondescript flavor, just artificial. You know, it's got the color of something tropical. Yeah. And Scots just love it, and they obviously it's their hangover tipple as well. It sort of lifts them up, but I don't know how they do it. But then they also eat battered Mars bars. So exactly. I have Scottish roots before any Scottish listeners get there, and I'm very proud of them. So let's just get that out there. In fact, on a complete digression, Barry, next month I'll be on a boat, you know, the National Geographic boat back and forth between Cartagena and Panama. And one of the talks I give, because that's what they pay me to do, is to talk, is about the Scottish settlement in the Darien. And I've been doing my genealogy, and I would like to tell you that I have direct descendants who helped fund that, what would we say, failed venture.
A failed venture, which is interesting. I had to write something about Panama once, and it was that settlement that came in, and they sailed into the bay and couldn't get out again because the winds always went the other direction. But their business that they were going to do with the local natives was wigs and Bibles.
Yeah,
you know, which is going to be a fantastically sort of successful commercial operation.
Well, wigs, Bibles, like clay pipes and buttons.
Oh, good. Well, that makes more sense.
What I'm going to do, so I found actually there's some paintings. A couple of them went on the expedition and then later ended up in New Jersey because they were then prisoners of war and then released in an exchange of prisoners. This is by the Spaniards, and they ended up in New Jersey, and that was part of the sort of migration to the northern United States. And I found portraits of these people. So what I'm going to do is start the talk with the portrait up there, and then just say, and can you see it? Look at my face. Can you see the profile? But anyway, I digress. It's very exciting, this. But
absolutely
is what makes life overseas and what we do so interesting, because I think we fall into rabbit holes and observe and study, and just we are taken out of our comfort zone in our home countries, which for you would be either Australia or France or the UK originally, now Colombia, but we have been taken from those, and it allows us to see things from afar. I would like to say, I often say that, you know, it puts us up on the balcony looking down at other things, and therefore it gives us a really interesting perspective on life, and I think we appreciate our adopted homeland even more. And I think that's why your book, and let's start with this, Better Than Cocaine, Learning to Grow Coffee and Live in Colombia, is so successful in what it's trying to do. So let's just talk about, first and foremost, I know that Colombians are going to be upset with the title, Better Than Cocaine, because they won't read past that. They'll see that. Whereas foreigners will be like, what's better than cocaine? You know, what can you tell us? But you are working to dispel this myth. And it's not a myth, but dispel this stereotype, I think.
Absolutely.
Tell us a bit more.
Well, the whole point, and it came out of when we first bought Rancho Grande in 2002, was our original farm. Nobody wanted coffee farms then, because coffee was right at the bottom. And living in the country, there was a lot of kidnapping, FARC and all that sort of going on. And the entry level for being considered kidnappable was being rich enough to own a refrigerator. Well, we bought this coffee farm. And my brother, I mean, there was no Ministry for Tourism then, because there was no tours. There was no tourism. Nobody was coming here. Everyone was avoiding it. And my brother said to me, look, when you're there, send a letter or an email every now and then so I know you haven't been kidnapped or killed. So, which I did, but instead of just saying still alive and at liberty, I thought I'd try and tell a bit more of the story that nobody ever heard. Mm-hmm. And I remember an Englishman I met in Pereira, and he'd retired, he'd married a Colombian woman, and he said to me, everything bad you hear about Colombia is true, but so is everything good you never hear. And that's what I wanted to do, was to try and tell a bit of the stuff that nobody ever gets to hear, because it's all kidnappings, killings, bombings.
But
You know, people in Ansoma, I was the only foreigner in town except for a Frenchman who came 30 years ago, and he's still called a Frenchman. And they say, "Oh, what do people talk about Colombia?" And I say, "Oh, usual, drugs, bombs, kidnapping." Oh.
yeah. I mean, so what is the year that you fully moved to Colombia then and got Rancho Grande, let's say?
No, well, we bought Rancho Grande because it was going to be a holiday home, basically.
Yeah.
Adriano and I met in London in '85, and he'd come. In those days, life expectancy, he thought, was about 40 years old. There's no point in staying in Colombia. So he went to there. We met. He came to Australia a couple of times, but it wasn't until 1990 that he decided he'd come back and visit again. And that was my first trip to Colombia, because he'd always said, "Oh, you must come to Colombia." And I said, "Oh, yeah, one of these days." And he called my bluff in 1990, and it was fabulous. We drove 8,000 kilometers through the country. Pablo Escobar blew up someone in Medellin just before we went through, so I drove through like that. But it was great. But everybody was saying, "You can't go there." We had a seminaries praying for our safe return and things like that. So, but more than anything, it was going to be a holiday home, because we didn't want to stay with his father. You know, as you get to a certain age, you want to have your own place.
Of course.
That was very available, because it had been sitting empty for 7 years. Banco Santander had it. All they wanted was cash, low price, so less than the price of a very small flat on the 6th floor without a lift in one of the less lovely arrondissements in Paris, or less than the price of a garage in London. We bought 125 acres and a house and all that sort of stuff. But that was going to be it. And it was a neighbor of father's who thinks that if you've got land and it's not growing something, it's blasphemy. He talked us into resurrecting the coffee, and we thought, that's okay. He said, "It doesn't cost much." Took everything we could pay for a couple of years. But that's how we got into it. And we were coming backwards and forwards. And at one time, we're visiting a friend in France, and she said, "Darling," because she talks like that, "Darling, are you serious about this coffee?" And we said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you better spend more bloody time there." So Adriano spent more time there. 2008, I was still living in Paris. We were living in Paris. The 2008, the financial crash came. Freelance work dried up, and I thought, well, I'm not working much anymore, and why am I here? So 2010, moved here, sold the apartment, bought 2 more farms.
And now you have, like, is it 5 farms?
No, we got 9.
9. Okay. You say that with a weariness.
Well, each farm has a house. Each house has to have people living in it, otherwise it gets carried away. Yeah. This usual stuff.
But so,
sorry, it's funny because I'm a writer. Okay, we writers haven't got people working for us.
Nope.
So, and I thought, oh, that's all right. And one day we're in town, and this guy walked by with 2 bags, and he said, "Buenos dias, patron." I said, "Who's that?" He said, "One of our workers." We'd brought this coffee farm back to life and created new employment. So suddenly I thought, wow, we're actually doing some good. And then I suddenly realized how many people rely on us for a job, and it sort of makes your head spin.
Hang on a second. They call you patron in town?
Oh no, they just call me Don Barry.
Oh,
the patron. Oh, some do call me patron as well, but he's the boss.
I would prefer not to be called el patron. I don't mind el inglés, el gringo, lo que sea, but el patron, because of the connotations to Escobar, always.
Oh no, forget about that. That's a bit like it's like Captain Quee or something like that. It's a title.
Yeah, it's true. It is.
It's funny. There's an Australian guy that we met, and this patron. He said he's got a polo team. He's one of those, and he thought, oh. And I said, well, that's what that means. And he said, yeah, I suppose that's South American players. No, it just means boss.
Okay, good. Well,
would you rather be doctor?
Well, I do have a doctorate, so it's fair enough. I would prefer not to be doctor if I wasn't a doctor, but I'm not going to cure anyone unless you need someone to, look over your social sciences or political.
Every executive, every bank manager, everybody is a doctor in here.
See, I don't like that. I mean, it sort of just goes back into this kind of, I mean, it is a kind of caste system in that. Well, you're a lawyer or a bank manager or someone, of a European descent or what have you, you're immediately a doctor, which I know a lot of people would prefer not to be referred to.
Good. But you are a doctor, so that's fair.
Yeah, I don't mind, but I would prefer only in the context of like academia. If I was in a university and talking, this is Dr. McColl, fair enough. Or I don't need it on my airline ticket, for example.
Well, that's right. When you're Sir Richard, you probably change your mind.
I don't know about Sir Richard, but listen, Barry, what you were writing beforehand, you were like a script writer, a screenwriter.
Yeah, well, not a screen. Well, interesting. No, I was a script writer. I was in the commercial sector. I'd come out of. I was going to do law, but didn't like it because I didn't know what law was about. I was judging lawyers on television, so I dropped out of the course, got into the record business, music publishing, band management, and then ended up with an audiovisual company, which did what we call live theatre or business theatre, and then ended up as creative director and the scriptwriter. And that was launching cars, expo pavilions, speeches. I used to write speeches for the top 5 executives in IBM Europe, and it's neither here nor there. But I mean, originally they asked me if I wanted to do the job and be appointed, and I said yes. And they said, "Okay, well, you must be able to do it on a computer and send it by email." And I said, "That's okay." I never did once. They flew me to Paris, and I had to read it to them on paper and then come back and change it. So
but this dovetails in nicely, though, of course, writing the scripts and so on to what you're doing now. And I know you're writing more, but we're focusing on Better Than Cocaine, learning to grow coffee and live in Colombia. What I really want to get across, we've got past, maybe Colombians not liking the title. We've got past that. If they are able to, let's read further and so on. What I like the most about it for me is it's neither a travelogue, because I don't want to do that kind of thing, but at the same time, these are, as we would say in Spanish, these are crónicas, because almost each chapter stands quite alone. I mean, they do feed in, but you could take each chapter out almost independently. And what it shows to me is that you are an immigrant to Colombia and not an expat. And I think you could probably describe the difference between those two.
One of the things what you lift out in the title is the punctuation, which is the two commas. It's learning to grow coffee and live in Colombia, because it's and I used to describe it as it's a bit like stranger in a strange land. I'm here. It becomes my new home. I haven't got the language, haven't got the history. I'd only ever read one Garcia Marquez book, before that, and a long time ago. But no, I'm not an expat. I'm not a mobile nomad and all that sort of stuff, etc. It's really learning. Well, yeah, I like countries where I don't speak the language, because I talk too much anyway. But when you don't speak the language, you've got to slow down and think a bit more. But more than anything, how do I say it? It's something as when we go back to Panama, okay? When I was writing about Panama, I was reading an Englishman's report on his advice to people, and he said, they regard time differently here. Don't expect them to be on time. If you make an appointment to go to the dentist, don't be surprised if he's playing golf instead. Don't make an appointment at all. Just turn up, because if anyone else has made an appointment, they won't have turned up, so it'll be okay. And in many ways, I sort of sum up as far as expectations is concerned, is punctuality, never. Predictability, rarely. Promiscuity, often. And passion, always.
But this is so true, what is so I don't want to say enlightening, but so refreshing about the content of the book is that you embrace it all.
You have to.
The tough side of things, obviously, is letting people go. That you have obviously invested not only cash but your time and affections with employees. You know, you become family, not just el patrón. You notice that because they are living on your land, they're looking after the well-being, and you are looking after their well-being. But you have to let them go, and you notice this, and that's you really do. You're seizing the opportunity there, and I think you don't miss anything because it's all in the book. But it's so very different because it's the knowledge that this is where I live. This is what I'm doing, you know, and you, again, like I said, you're grasping the opportunity with both hands.
Well, I'm a fairly boring person up to a point. And well, I was living in English language, except for Paris, of course, but I was still working in London. But I sort of knew what was going on, and I'm very punctual. I'm a Virgo, I turn up, you know.
When's your birthday, Barry? Is it the same time as mine?
I don't know, mine's 12th of September.
Okay, so you're before me. Okay, all right.
Yeah, of course. And funnily enough, well, anyway. And then, of course, I meet a force of nature, Adriana. And we met 38 years ago last Wednesday.
No.
Yeah, and we haven't got bored with each other yet. But that put in a destabilizing sort of effect in my life. And when we were there, when we were in London and Paris and things, it was easy. When we came here, suddenly I'm thrown into a world where everyone makes it up as they go along. And, you know, what are we doing today? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? He didn't know. He still doesn't know.
Would you suggest that now he's the stabilizing factor and you are the destabilizing factor?
Oh, no. I just learned not to be impatient and not to expect to know anything in advance. No, it is. If you invite people for dinner, if you set anything up in advance, it doesn't usually happen.
Yes, true.
You know, if it's made up on the spot, fine. As we've got a very good friend, we both have a friend, Vicky, who wrote in her book or in her blog, she said she never cooks. No, she never invites people for dinner because she can't cook arroz con pollo, chicken rice for 100, because you never know how many people are going to turn up.
Oh yeah.
Whereas in London, you know exactly. You know,
you would never. I mean, in London, you would, in my point of view, you would never not turn up after saying you're coming. I mean, that's Absolutely. It. Whereas in Colombia, yeah, I'll be there. And you can very easily just shirk the responsibility.
Absolutely. Well, my job, because Adriana is a chef as well, my job is usually to set the table. So I say, how many courses are we having? I don't know. Oh, okay. Well, how many people have we got? We got 4. Okay. And then about, there's another 2. Oh, really? Oh, God, more placement. And how many courses are we having? I don't know yet.
But this is part of the joy. And again, you know, you really do express it in there. But again, that's moving on slightly because I know my listeners are obviously enjoying this because this is a very open conversation about Colombia, about Barry, about the book. But most importantly, you know, the book is now available to pre-order on Amazon as an ebook. It's up there. So just put in Barry Maxwell's or put in Better Than Cocaine, Kindle books, and it'll be up there. I will tell you now, I put it up this morning, there's already a couple of sales. Obviously, we're aiming for many more, but I've just sent in for the pricing of the paperbacks as well. So those will be under, let's just say, under the right stars. They will be there for the November 30th when we do the launch in that evening. I'm very excited about it. We're putting all the pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. Are you ready to give a short talk about the book?
Well, I'm always ready to give a short talks are difficult sometimes. I tend to go on a bit, but you can always have a hook that goes. No, it's good. It's very exciting for me. I mean, this book has been distilled and inspired by 20 years of my letters from Colombia, because as we mentioned earlier, I keep writing them every now and then. People have to ask me to go on the mailing list. They're all free. After about 3 weeks or so, they go on the letters from Colombia.com website with fewer photos. But that's that's only in the last couple of years. But it's a distillation of those. But what is different with this, of course, is, well, there's a bit more about coffee, because we have to talk about coffee, because that's what also the book about. It's not a learned poem of coffee growing techniques or anything like that. It's not a savor this, etc., with the spicy aromas and notes of such and such. But the other thing is, it also includes some of the stuff that did happen to us that I didn't put in the letters, because people are expecting to hear about crime or death or whatever, etc. And that does happen every now and then. Not to us, fortunately. Touching wood. That's wood.
You got plenty around. You're in the bush.
Exactly. Well, yeah. And so it gives a fuller story. And that's the thing. Because for a long time, I just had to be positive, because everybody's waiting to hear the bad news. That you've been kidnapped or something like that. I mean, it happened outside.
Yeah, it's like what you said at the beginning of the English guy in Cartagena, is that, everything bad that happens in Colombia is true, but everything good that nobody talks about is also true. And I mean, that's the reality. The image sold, and I am a journalist, and of course, it's what we are paid to write, because that's what will sell, people buying the subscription to the Times or wherever. It's those headlines, the negative headlines. We know this. Nobody needs to be. It's a discussion that's useless. We're not selling with a newspaper saying everything's glorious in Colombia. No, it's not that.
No, it's not. That's the whole thing. And it was interesting. Two things. One, I put the cover. It was done. I put the cover on my Facebook page, and immediately one friend who's a lawyer in Melbourne, Australia, said, "How is it better than cocaine?" And I said, read the book. That's quite simple. But the other thing is that always people say, well, I was introduced one time. I was a guest speaker at a conference. And I was introduced as, this is Barry Maxwell's. He grows drugs in Colombia. And everyone, when I came on, I said, yes, we grow the world's favorite drug, coffee. Yeah. Second biggest traded commodity after oil. So,
no, I mean, obviously your let's say your immersion into the coffee world was quite extreme. How's the coffee market going now these days?
Coffee market now is crap, with the excuse the expression. The price is right down. Now it's interesting. 10 years ago, 2013, we had what we call the paro cafetero, and the coffee price was the pits. It was costing more to grow coffee than to sell it. And interesting enough, 10 years before that, 2002, we bought Rancho Grande because it was at the bottom of then. So it obviously goes through cycles. Anyway, so now it's doing that again. The price is bad. The cosecha, which is the harvest, is just about to happen. We got the coffee. But the problem is, and as I said to the Federation, we've got the Federation of Cafeteros de Colombia, which was set up to look after the coffee growers and, guaranteed to buy their coffee. But the price, of course, is settled by the commodities and the fluctuations of the dollar. Now, like the oil market, which is the only bigger commodity, when the price of oil goes up, the price at the pump goes up. When the price of oil goes down, the price at the pump goes down. Yeah, if the price goes down, coffee's still expensive. If the price goes up, it's still expensive. And at the moment, I said to the Federation, we went to their headquarters in Chinchina, and my question was, when the coffee price goes down, do all your salaries go down? Do your pension contributions go down? No, they all stay the same. The only people who go down are the ones who are growing the stuff that you wouldn't even have a job if we didn't.
Yeah. I'm not going to venture into my thoughts on the Federation. You know them far better than I do, but I've also been to a couple of press conferences in their very nice offices just round by the Calle 72.
Okay.
They don't live humbly, let's say.
Well, I said it in my book in the 2013 Para Cafetera, the president, or the boss of who was a political appointee by the president of Colombia, Santos, was getting paid 45,000, allegedly 45,000 US a month. And we all having to support and feed, or support our workers and their families and all the rest of it, with the price through the floor. And then I won't go into it because it's too long a diatribe. But they were saying, oh, we're spending money on tourism. Oh, tourism, that'll be good because the coffee region is World Heritage Site and all that sort of stuff, United Nations. And it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's one of the most stunning places you could actually be. So they were pushing for tourism, but who's going to get the money for the tourism? Spa operators, the hotels, not the coffee farmers who made the place look so beautiful.
It's a kind of a redundant thing. We're sending coffee to you. So I suppose the suggestion there, not so, is that you branch out into tourism. But why would you if you're so exhausted on the coffee? Why would you do that?
Exactly. We're so busy making coffee. The other thing was derivatives. They were into that. We're investing a lot in derivatives. But that doesn't help the coffee farmer. The coffee farmer is growing the coffee. After which all the derivatives, all the value-added sectors, all the other bits and pieces come. Anyway, farmers, that's the problem.
Yeah, well, farmers, wretched farmers. Barry,
campesinos, that's what they call us, and I'm very proud to be a campesino.
You should be, and it is a farmer and not a peasant, like the translation. I don't like that translation, although But so tell us, but we go back to this. The book cover is very colorful, very vibrant. It does, I think, reflect your life there in the bush. It's done, the artwork, because it was done by Adriano.
Certainly was. And he's an artist, as well as being a chef, as well as being a coffee boss, etc. He studied in London at Chelsea School of Art and Middlesex and St. Martin's and things. And he got a first, which he never talks about. But what he does is he's in the studio when he's not at the Federation, when he's not, doing that sort of stuff. He's trying to step back a bit from that. But of course, with the book coming out, I said, can I have a cover? So he came up with a range of covers, as you've seen. 16 of them. And the one that is fancied best is a very statuesque woman. Because the book is about Colombia. It's about color. It's about coffee. Her dresses, there's coffee cherries, etc. She's got these birds. There's all sorts of things. And of course, Colombian women are very beautiful, as you know. You're married to one.
Oh yes.
And yeah, exactly. So it's all of that, but it's more striking. It's yes, and of course, not being sensational. Of course, better than cocaine across her midriff, etc. As you say, not many people are going to be reading Learning to Grow Coffee and Live in Colombia, but it should look interesting. And of course, one of 16, and I'm. Can I say what we're going to do?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, we're going to have all 16 of those as part of the exhibition on the launch evening.
And we're thinking about an auction for one of them, right?
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. We have to decide which one.
Yeah, we have to decide which one, but I think it would. Obviously, it's going to be a lively event. You see, you and Adriano are there. That's a lively event in itself. But I think also that we need to get someone up there, an auctioneer. It doesn't have to be a professional auctioneer. Again, I've got someone in mind. Not going to mention. I think going to send that out. But I think it'd be fun to get someone of note to auction one of the paintings
and raise some money for charity.
Hope so. It would be very nice. I am a trustee for a charity, so I would be. I would hope to raise it for that one. I don't think they'd ever forgive me. But at the same time, and of course, the person I know is involved in the charity too, so that would be great. But I think, I did actually check your Facebook page out. I did actually check. You put up the cover of the book, and someone also sent you a message saying that this is an important cover.
Oh yeah, exactly. It was Ron Story. What I didn't know is he was in publishing with Bantam and Corgi, and I knew him when he was an important marketing guy in drugs. Not drugs, not cocaine.
We have to clarify that. Well, just
well, not cigarettes, not coffee, but in medical drugs. But he lives in Holland now, he and his wife, and he liked the cover, and he said, "I know from my time in publishing how important the cover is."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I don't know what the content is like, although I can guess because we know each other very well. But it's a great start." And I must admit, because I've sent the cover to an announcement to all my letters from Colombia.
Right. So how many people are on that list, by the way?
Oh, about 300 or something like that.
Okay, so if we can get all 300 to buy, a pre-order of the ebook, then we get up into the charts.
That's all right. I'll just have to tell them. At the moment, they don't know it's available until the 30th.
So, I mean,
but
last night.
I've had such a reaction. Some of these people have been getting it for 20 years, and as you know, when you send things out, if you get 2 responses, it probably means that quite a few people like it, but they don't bother doing it. I've been inundated with responses this time from people I haven't heard from 15 years saying, "Wow, congratulations, love the cover."
There you go. And so I will send you the link, and then it can go in the next one. You can pester everyone.
I would just suggest it because they're already asking, "How can I buy one? Will you sign it?" And I go,
Well, the physical will come out, and then we'll deal with how to deal with that one. But the first thing is get it out there. Let's get some really great reviews from our readers, your readers, and then of course it pushes it up. Unfortunately, it's the reality of everything today is all of this self-promotion that's required. But
we're a lot more interested in than anybody else.
Yeah, it's like you say with the emails, you send it out to everyone. It's like throwing the mud and seeing where it sticks. But the fact that you've got all of that feedback is really, and I imagine there's people that as you said, people you haven't talked to in maybe 20 years, but are still receiving it, still reading it, and now have written to you.
Exactly, and I'm so pleased that they're still reading it because you don't know. People might be just ignoring it.
Well, I'm really good at deleting emails now. I mean, I still get obviously I get the letters from Colombia, but for me, one of the added, I mean, there weren't many benefits to the quarantine and so on, obviously, but one of the things I went through was unsubscribing from unwanted, circulars. So it's been great. So, I get far less stuff from Claro, Colombia, and everything else where they sell my details on to half a dozen other places. So it was but yours isn't spam, and it doesn't go into a spam. Good. So there you go.
I'm pleased.
So tell us, I mean, what would you're in the coffee zone right now, and I think genuinely, if we all thought about it properly and considered it, we should all be living out there. It is the most accommodating place with the most wonderful people as well. And this is one of the things that has always struck me because I spend so much time on the Caribbean coast. There is a very different pace of life and a very different, I would say, not level of, I don't want to say education, but the way people address one another and so on. Years ago, we visited Salento before it became the tourism gulch that it is today. And we got off a bus leaving Salento to catch one to Finlandia. And, we hailed down the bus. Well, actually, no, the bus stopped for us, which first and foremost, we weren't even aware happened because on the coast, you have to sort of throw yourself in front of one. But it stopped for us. The driver alighted, so he came down the steps and said, "Where are you going?" And we were like, "We'd like to get to Finlandia." He says, "No, this isn't the bus. We'll be going on to Armenia. But your bus should be arriving," and he looked at his watch, in about 3 minutes. Have a lovely day. And, me and Alba, my wife and I, we were kind of nervous. He's like, "Why is everyone so polite and so nice in this way?" And of course, then the next bus arrived and they stopped and, the man wiped down the seats for us. And I'm just like, ooh. Again, we were still very much ill at ease about this because in the coast, we're like, again, like I was saying, not throwing yourself in, but basically you're being shouted down by half a dozen people. It has its own charm. Of course it does, because it's very different, but it's a different country altogether. It's reality.
I mean, if you're in a waiting room, for instance, it was interesting when in the UK, you just sit there.
Yeah.
Here, everybody's chatting away, you know. Yeah. People say hello all the time. They stare at you. You know, if you do it in the UK, what are you looking at? Yeah. Here, it's, I'm looking at you.
But that, I mean, even in Bogota, I say good morning to everyone, and because it's still got a small town feel in that respect. It is now a big cosmopolitan city and so on. And 10 years ago, when we last recorded, because it has to be about 10 years ago, it was even more of a pueblo, more of a town. But of course, it's grown, and the restaurants and everything else have improved massively and so on. But I still say it to everyone here because of my practice of doing it in Montpos, and people enjoy it. But then I go back for a visit in the UK and do the same thing, and I really get the looks, in London. What the hell is this man? So why is he saying good morning to everyone? Because I'll do it at the bus stop. Good morning,
Yeah, absolutely. And you walk through, buenos dias. No, it's nice. It's very friendly, and it's sort of relaxed but chatty, and it's a different thing. When you were saying it's physically beautiful in here, it is, but then again, at the same time, you got to like mountains.
Yeah.
There's two things I always remember. We've got a lot of workers who've never seen the sea. Adriano had never seen the sea before he went to Australia, and then first day we were there, we were sitting on Palm Beach, and I thought, oh, he's suffering from jet lag. Well, no, he's just taking in the Pacific, because you've never seen it before, and. That's, yeah. Just going back, a little digression, because I mentioned in the book how places different. There was a bus that was stopped by the FARC at one stage, and in the days when they used to do all that, and miraculous fishing or whatever, they stopped it, and they all had to get off the bus. And there were two English boys on it. They were old Etonians.
Oh, no,
they could speak Spanish. And of course, pretty self-assured, and they engaged the FARC guerrillas in talking about football, and so soon they were all talking about El Pibe and Valderrama, and Valderrama and Ronaldo and all the different ones, etc., and whether it was Liverpool or whether it was Barca or all that sort of stuff. And then it was suggested, why doesn't the bus play the guerrillas in a game of football? And if the bus won, the guerrillas would let them go. If the guerrillas won, they'd keep them for ransom. So they did. The bus won. They all got on. Guerrillas waved them off.
This is one of the great stories. I mean, because obviously there are a lot of stories that don't end in the same.
Oh, that's awful. I mean, and also up in Montpos and around, a lot of places were affected much more than we were here, for instance. We lost some friends, but I know that when the peace was being negotiated, there were people who just wanted to get it over with because they were losing so many friends and relatives. It was,
Well, in Montpos, we weren't in the town wasn't affected directly, but it was the access to the town through the Montes de Maria, so midway between Cartagena and Montpos, which remains today a problem, and then into sort of northern Antioquia, which is just over to one side, and of course Norte de Santander over the other side, and it remains to this day. I mean, that's the truth of it.
Well, whenever we drive to Medellin, Adriano always says, "Oh, this is where everyone always got kidnapped." Oh, really? Not anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, not anymore. And I mean, that's the thing. Is the kidnapping is. I'm not going to say it's a thing of the past, but because it's still the occasion, it does happen, but it's not anything like it was in the 80s and the 90s and so on.
No, a lot of people didn't like Narcos because it was talking about an era here. And they were saying, what are they doing, resurrecting all this stuff? But it's history. It's like watching a war film,
Yeah, Narcos isn't designed for us here in Colombia. And that's the truth. It's for an external market. And I've said on this podcast many times that a friend of mine in Montreal is watching it and then calling me up and saying, I had no idea about the assassination of Galan, or I had no idea. That is an education. And then you get great more reality. For us who have lived here, obviously not through the worst years, let's be rightly honest, or who have family here, a Colombian family. You know, every single family is affected or has been affected by the violence, whether it be a murder, kidnapping, being extorted, losing land, etc. You know, it goes on. My wife's family is no stranger to this, and of course, Adriana's family is no stranger to this, and we could go on about it. But the reality is very different. But to have something that explains to a foreign audience and doesn't glorify
or glamorize
it, then fine, you know, fine. It's not for me. I watched 4 episodes to see where it was going, but I know the history. I don't need to.
Yeah. Well, I was in one episode, but I was an extra. I was a lawyer sitting at the. I was a lawyer sitting at the bench of the trial of the Cali cartel accountant.
Yeah, and, a friend of mine, Chris, was an American diplomat. Brendan, who is Irish, was a German diplomat.
I know.
So not cast, but you know, a little bit put out. No, I'm not at all. Barry, let's bring this to an end. It has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and it's always so nice because it's just a flowing conversation. Let's send everyone to the Amazon site. Better Than Cocaine, Learning to Grow Coffee and Live in Colombia, by Barry Max Wills. He's out there in the bush. That's Anserma Caldas, the heart of Colombia's coffee region, the Eje Cafetero, which really is quite spectacular, and that everyone should come and visit. My friends, older friends of the family who came last year, or was it this year? I don't even remember. What said, and one of them in their 90s said, "I think I've died and gone to heaven." And there you go. And these are people who are well traveled. So you can pre-order the book is available as an ebook. It's and to pre-order, and it will come out very shortly. It will go to your Kindles and whatever else you use. And then on the 30th of November, if you are in Colombia, save the date and get in touch with me so we can put you on a guest list. We will be launching the book in San Felipe, so the arts district of Bogota. We have a very nice location for it. There will be drinks, there will be talks, there will be an auction. That sounds pretty exciting to me. I hope.
And an exhibition of fabulous paintings.
And an exhibition of fabulous paintings, just great conversation. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? So, Barry, thank you so much again. It's you know, this is great.
Thank you for everything. Thank you for helping. Well, thank you for bringing Better Than Cocaine, Learning to Grow Coffee and Live in Colombia to life. It's been part of my life, and it's now part of our lives.
Yeah, definitely part of my life now as well.
Excellent.
Right.
Thank you so much.
To everyone else, please look up the website, lettersfromcolombia.com, because all of the updates, you can get a feel for Barry's writing there, but of course, not the complete deal, not the real deal. That's in the book, Better Than Cocaine, Learning to Grow Coffee and Live in Colombia, on Amazon as an ebook right now, available for pre-order. And then, of course, we will have the paperbacks out from the 30th of November. So get in touch. Thank you for listening. And of course, please buy the book because it deserves to be read. I've been McColl, talking to Barry Max Wills in Anserma Caldas. This has been episode 490 of the Colombia Calling podcast. Thank you all for listening, and bye-bye.